poquito, poquito podcast. Poquito, poquito podcast. Poquito.
Hello, and welcome back to Un Poquito. I'm Ryan Reyes.
And I'm Ricky Macias.
And I'm Josh, the producer.
And this week, Dominic's still gone, so we're going to do another episode of Autism because it's the last week of Autism Awareness Month, and as soon as this month is over, I'm still going to be autistic, so don't forget about that. Last week, we talked a lot about common misconceptions of autism, and something that came up frequently was how a lot of people's assumptions about autistic people are kind of arbitrary and based on like different sources of basic information. And that gave me an idea for this episode. I do want to talk about some misconceptions, but more specifically, I want to talk about some of the traits that aren't as well known that are associated with autism, because usually the very basic, very minimal description of an autistic person is known, and it's like always the same thing. It's monotone, or they don't talk, or they, fidget with their hands, and it's a very limiting image, and when people don't match that image, they're far more likely to be dismissed. So I want to talk about deconstructing that image. So there's this thing called autistic coding, and there's different kinds of coding. It's an adopted term from black coding, which is a thing where a character acts African American, but they aren't. Like same concept, but with autism, where, well, it's a little bit different in this circumstance. It's if you were to say they were autistic, it would explain their behavior, but they never state out loud whether or not they're autistic.
Right.
I will say that most people look at autism coding as like those characters that just barely don't say that they're autistic. Like Sheldon Cooper is one of the better examples of purposefully autistic coded, because he says he was tested, but he never explains what that means.
What about I see one that gets brought up is like Zooey Deschanel and New Girl.
Yeah, that one plays on a very common trope of the manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of bad for Zooey Deschanel because I'm pretty sure that is genuinely just her vibe, and it just happens to also correlate with like that idea. I would say the manic pixie dream girl is less a type of autistic personality and more of kind of fantastically like created image that, what am I saying here?
I think I understand what you're saying, and I feel like it can happen a lot with a bunch of different characters, because the point of a lot of characters, especially in TV, are like generic traits that a lot of people can relate to. Right. So you can you could see yourself in a lot of characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of like commonly used like trope characters.
Right, for sure.
But I do think that, to be honest, a lot of female trope types feel like they were created by guys.
No, and they were, a lot of them were and are. I was actually just thinking about the manic pixie dream girl thing.
Right.
I was listening to an opinion on it being negative because it's like a male created projection that gives a woman no agency, and then is just used as a catalyst for a man to like figure out what he wants to do in life or something.
Yeah, it's some similar. It's like along the same lines of like the magical brown person trope. It's a common joke that Key and Peele made a whole sketch about. There's a whole movie about it.
Oh
yeah.
What's it called?
Magical Negroes or something like that.
American Society of Magical Negroes, which is their chosen title.
Yeah.
But it is fun trying to see if white people will say the title. I did not mean to make that a segue, but I went to see this movie on opening night, and this dude, I feel so bad for him because he was so enthusiastic about his job. He was like greeting people. He was asking how they were doing, and he sounded so enthusiastic to be, far more enthusiastic than any other ticket terror I've ever encountered. But then he got to us, and he was like, "What are you guys watching today? Oh, you're watching ooh, that'll be Theater 13. There you go." And immediately, even his tone changed. Actually, he was like, "Oh, it's gonna be 13." It was so funny. But yeah, so that's kind of what I mean. Is a lot of these tropes are created by guys to fuel the drive of the male character,
Right, which is that's the point
yeah,
of a side character.
Yeah, but you're saying like it's used a lot just for that only.
I think that stories are more entertaining when you're able to absorb all the characters as individuals. Like for a minute, I think we were embracing side characters, but we were kind of overcorrecting it. Like side characters started getting spin-offs, which is like kind of defeats the purpose of creating the side character. I think if it's done well, like, what's a good example of a side character that got their own storyline?
Frasier.
I think, yeah.
I think Frasier's a spinoff.
Is that autistic coded?
No, he's just rich and white.
Have you watched Frasier?
Okay, he's not rich.
No, he's pretty. He lives
pretty
in
wealthy.
like
He
Seattle.
owns his-
Is it Seattle or San
Isn't it
Francisco?
like a radio show?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
bet,
sure
man.
that guy's got money.
Like,
Yeah.
before podcasts.
No, he's
were
got
a
money.
thing.
His apartment was amazing.
I don't remember whole storylines completely. I do think that I think people read more into his brother being coded than he was, but it was also just like the way they talked didn't seem like normal, like how people talk.
It's very.
It was-
It's giving Gilmore Girls.
Well, it was more. I mean, yes and no. For me, it was like it felt very theatrical, and this is supposed to be like an average Joe in New York kind of thing. I don't know. I do see why like American television sort of swayed out of that, not genre, but that mode. For a minute, they were really obsessed with like 20 to 30-year-old New Yorkers. Not even New Yorkers, just people living in New York who were like middle class. Like Friends, Seinfeld.
It's just writers writing themselves.
Yeah, I do think that Zooey Deschanel's character is... I do genuinely think that's supposed to be her vibe. And what I think was interesting about the series... I wasn't like the hugest fan of New Girl. I did follow it. I get why people liked it. Was the Manic Pixie was the main character. And so like... I think that we sort of entered an era where people recognized that characters like that weren't just there for relief, like comic relief, or, like how they used to be used to like help the main character, who's like usually a cis white man, evolve. Instead, they were evolving themselves, and you got to see them beyond the quirkiness.
Right.
And I think that was interesting.
Yeah,
I think that
I get
she's
that.
not the only... I feel like New Girl started doing that at a time when people were still trying to hold on to group sitcoms. Like How I Met Your Mother or The Big Bang Theory.
I still feel like New Girl is that though, right? They have like a group thing going on.
Yeah, but I think I see your point where it's like it's more around her.
Well, what I mean is like there's definitely a lot more shows like that now. And I think a lot of that has to do with like younger millennials, older Gen Zs entering adulthood and influencing that kind of television. Because there's also one area that I think is like kind of the perfect niche for autistic adults has been adult cartoons. For the longest time, a lot of adult cartoons have been the same sort of format. It's kind of like a, not dopey, but like a misanthrope kind of main character who's in his mid-30s to early 40s and like is kind of dumb, but he's put into the situation where he's the main character, so he has to like dumb guy his way through the scenario.
Right.
Like Futurama
Yeah.
or not Rick and Morty. Morty's kind of Morty.
Yeah.
Or what's that one?
I mean-
There's one where he's like a demon slayer, but he's bald. Frank something. Anyway,
I feel like it's familiar.
I feel like I've seen people talk about this too, where adult animation's kind of been held back by this specific idea that major networks are trying to sell to people because they think that's the only version of an adult comedy that'll sell. Is either that or it's the overly dramatized version of the fat husband, hot wife trope.
Right. Family Guy.
Yeah,
The
Family Guy,
Simpsons.
The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers.
All in the family, basically.
And some of them, I think that Bob's Burgers kind of fell into its own. A lot of people made jokes that it was like on the heels of... It replaced what would have been the Cleveland show. You know what I mean? Like...
Cleveland show was terrible.
Yeah. Well, it was like a room full of white people writing a show for black people. It was like...
Yeah.
That show was kind of for no one except the people making it.
Yeah, I didn't like any of the spin-offs of Family Guy.
Have there been more?
American Dad.
American
Dad.
Dad's more in the same universe, but I think
I
Yeah, I
actually
didn't
kind of
know.
liked American Dad, but yeah.
I liked the first
episodes. Yeah.
2 seasons.
Because they actually had story.
Yeah.
But I even stopped liking Family Guy after a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
After like 1 season, 2 seasons.
Wow.
What was the peak? When did it like change?
Season 3, chicken
Family Guy?
chicken fight.
Yeah. They got too much money.
Well, I think that there was this era of that kind of cartoon that I think what changed a lot of cartoons in general was the Simpsons movie. Because they added a very theatrical aspect to the animation that I think was accepted by so many people that just became the influence. Because after that, like one small detail was after that they constantly added stylized shading to the characters, so it was like implied lighting that they hadn't before. Family Guy got super into that, and, like especially their specials, like that episode with James Wood was very theatrical. They put a lot of work into replicating like how movies are shot.
Technology also changed right at that time, and
Yeah.
computers started getting way more involved.
I also think that was the peak of like transitioning out of hand-drawn cartoons and kind of going into not copy and paste like it's lazy, but like using a computer to replicate it.
Right.
So instead of drawing each frame, drawing like the storyboard and then having someone individually draw the shots in between the 2 frames, you would create pieces of the character, the mouth, the eyes, and the ears, and then just copy and paste where you needed to per frame.
Right.
It's still technically the same thing, it's just done digitally.
Yeah, and it's a lot more difficult. We should reset real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
You done to just stop both the cameras?
Yeah.
Here, I can stop mine actually.
I do have a way of coming back to the original topic.
We were talking about cartoons.
Oh yeah, what was the one?
I said something about. Oh man, I never stopped the audio. Oh well, it's fine.
Could sync it, right?
Yeah, it'll sync everything.
It's going to be a little more annoying.
They'll just be like a large blank spot. That's all. I was saying we were talking about the big fat guy and a super hot wife.
Yeah, I was talking about Family Guy's
Family Guy.
style change.
Oh yeah, we were talking about the change in technology.
Yeah, so on the sides of that though, like with Adult Swim and with people starting their own cartoons like as web series, but they're like fully funded animation.
Right.
I've seen a lot more like not just autism coded. I wouldn't say that these shows are like targeted towards autistic people, but I definitely think that they are a lot less worried about that structure that mainstream animation is so worried about. So you get stuff like The Bravest Heroes with Catbug. Everyone who knows who I'm talking about. You get like Bee and Puppy Cat, like the Adventure Time scene that was kids are now adults making their own cartoons.
Right.
And I think it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. Speaking of Bee and Puppy Cat, I think that is the most autistic show I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys have watched it.
Just the struggles of B.
No, like all the characters talk like they're autistic. Like, I can't explain it any better than you can watch it. You just have to watch it and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't mean that they're weird. I mean, they all are weird and quirky, but they talk with a specific level of assumption towards each other. Like, everyone is responding to everyone else with the assumption that the other person already knows what they're talking about, which is kind of a thing with autistic people. Like, someone I actually saw this on TikTok. Somebody made this video where one of the questions in the official assessment test for autism is, what do 2 and 7 have in common?
Yeah.
I just saw a video about this.
Yeah.
Dang it, I was going to ask you guys by surprise.
But I thought the same thing that they said.
Answer. Yeah, the person making the video was like, well, they look similar. And then the non-autistic person said, well, yeah, but the first thing I thought of was they're both numbers. Because the autistic person will assume you already have the context that they're numbers. So they think that, like, it's not necessarily that the autistic person thinks you already know. It's that because it's already the preset context, they believe the question has more intricacy than it does. And they think that they need to actually think about the answer. And they're overthinking the question. That's the thing. So, but that mentality is prevalent in like every single character of this show. And it's like a bonkers show. It's like if PBS produced Adventure Time, because it's also very soft and comfortable.
Yeah.
Like the sound quality, the scoring is very like reminiscent of PBS shows, but it still has this anime kind of thing to it where it's very fantastical, and sci-fi is also magic. But it's great. It's a great show.
Gotta check it out.
Going back to what we're supposed to be talking about, I wanted to talk about some like traits that are very common with autism, but just not always talked about, and so they're not always part of what people think when they think autism. One of them is echolalia. Echolalia is a common thing. A lot of people are confused about what echolalia is because, like a lot of other traits, to some degree, it looks like what normal people already do, but it's just more specific. Like if you and I have a favorite movie between us and I start quoting that movie and you finish the quote, that can be assumed like that's not echolalia, that's just us being in on the joke. But you see a lot of like prank videos where people do this to each other. If I just start saying the quote and then regardless of what you're doing, you're not focused on me, you just start finishing the quote, that's a little bit more echolalia. That's you responding to the stimulus. Like someone will say something that reminds me of a catchphrase and then I say the catchphrase out loud even though it doesn't have like any direct correlation for the other person. I'm trying to think of like a common one. Like sometimes people have a certain tone in their voice when they're making a list that to me sounds like Carl Weathers in Arrested Development. So I'll just start saying, add some vegetables and a chicken broth. You got a stew going, baby.
Yeah.
And it's like regardless of if they're actually talking about food.
Like on Emperor's New Groove, like, is that my voice?
Yeah.
Like anyone that starts like, is that, they do that weird like pause on the, is that?
It also can be like sounds and noises. Like if I'm with another autistic person and I start the first half of the song, they have to finish it because they can't help it.
It's like starting to howl in Zootopia.
Yes, yeah.
He's like, why are you howling? He's like, why are you doing that? You're gonna start a howl. It's like, what? And they can't help it.
Yeah,
like they all join in eventually.
And they're all pissed at each other. Like,
Yeah.
who started the howl? It's really funny. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing where it's like it's not necessarily involuntary, but it's not on purpose.
Yeah,
It's just a sort of click in the brain. Stims. A lot of people have a hard time recognizing what is stimming. Stimming is a stimulated action. It's a response to stimulus as well as a form of stimulation in itself. All people stim, like restless leg syndrome, people that tap when they're nervous or when they don't like silence. Everyone to a degree stims, autistic people stim very noticeably. And that's the distinction. Like when you know a kid who, the common things are hand flapping, people pacing back and forth is a form of stimming. There's also a common thing is like rocking or like making sounds. Those are commonly recognized forms of autistic stimming. But for a lot of us, we learn to like hide it. I don't think that it goes. That's my personal opinion, that it doesn't really go away. We just like disguise it. We turn it into other things. Like, I learned how to beatbox mostly as a way of controlling my stims because it was a thing that I didn't need my hands for, and I got really good at it. So that was cool. Or like, I've seen people instead of flapping their hands, they'll clench their hands, or they'll one thing that's become super popular with autistic people is fidget devices. One of them is like this faux blade thing. It's hard to describe because when you look at it, it actually looks like a toy, like it was made by Tonka or something. It's very vibrant. It's all made of like 3D printer plastic. It just serves no other function than it just has a bunch of gizmos that you can play with, and it feels like a butterfly knife.
That's cool. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I like messing with little gadgets and gizmos.
I'm sure you do. I don't think stims are an uncommon trait, but I think that it's not talked about how much adults with autistic adults like learn to cope with stimming and hide it. Because that's not for us. That's like for everyone else. And I understand learning how to control a situation so that it's not completely like disabling to the situation. Like us learning not to have complete breakdowns in public, especially if it's for the safety of our physical well-being as well as others. But not being able to react at all, I think, is frustrating. And especially in Black and brown communities. Like, I don't know about you guys, my dad is definitely somebody who doesn't think that adult men should cry, to the point where he acts confused if he sees like a guy crying. It's really funny. I used to joke that you could always tell how sad something is by how close my dad came to shedding one tear.
You know what they say? One tear, one beer. Got to hold the rest back,
I don't think it's bad for guys to cry, obviously, but I do think that if a guy's crying over something random, I'm like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah,
it depends on context for sure.
Context for sure. But I just mean like acknowledging. One thing I find frustrating about straight people is how much whether they're men or women, focus on whether or not guys should be able to cry. It's so distracting. Like even watching UFC, when somebody wins and then he starts crying, I hear people say, "Stop crying! There's no crying and fighting," and it's like,
right?
Yeah,
how can you watch this dude demolish another human being and then still try to say that he's not masculine?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I've never heard anyone say that person's crazy. Having like tears of joy after you won a championship fight or something is completely normal.
Yeah, or like acknowledging like that you've made it to a certain level that you didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been working hard for this for months and months.
Yeah, it's like so weird because obviously like the latter is accepted. Like you take it into a different context, like an actor crying over an award, it's much more accepted, and it's like
right.
That it's weird that people are accepting of that visually from women because they think that they expect it from women, and then just like assume that guys don't feel that way.
Yeah.
The whole idea that sex identity has any influence on like how you perceive emotions is kind of ridiculous to me. What do you guys think? Do you guys think you stim?
I guess I don't know. I just like suppressed a lot of things in the past, but I bite my nails to this day,
That's a form of stimulation?
compulsively. And it's gotten better, but it still like sometimes hurts my fingers, you know?
I used to when I was young. I stopped doing it though because
You don't do any kind of stimulation? You don't shake your leg?
not really. I don't do that. No,
Also-
but
No, just reiterating what I said before, just about anybody stims. It's not
Yeah.
exclusively autism.
right. I mean, well, first of all, I self-medicate, so that I think that's a thing. But also, I like to overstimulate myself. Like, I play loud music and watch flashing colors on the screen, like literal straight up flashing colors. And I'll be like, this is crazy. One thing I used to do when I was young that I used to like was, like dead channel, static, white noise.
Yeah.
I would turn them up, and I love watching the static on TV. Just putting my eyes all close to it, and just letting my whole vision get consumed by the flashing black and white colors. That's what I mean by overstimulating.
That's so interesting.
I always hated the Outer Limits intro because it would start with static, and I would always think it was real.
You hate that static. A lot of people hate that static, or like it annoys them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
annoying.
think it's very loud.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have. Oh, that does bring me to a thing. So a lot of people think that autistic people either have hypo or hypersensitivity when it comes to their senses, but actually, for a lot of us, it's sort of a transition between the two. Like, there are moments where we're so hyper focused on something that we're unaware of our environment, and then there's moments where we're aware of everything. Like today, honestly, it took us a minute to get this episode started because I was having a sort of episode of hypersensitivity. Like I could. It started with we were eating and I could hear everyone chewing, including myself, which is frustrating. You ever get annoyed by yourself for taking too long? Just like.
That does happen to me sometimes.
This guy.
It happens to me when I chew bread.
Yeah.
Whenever you ever
bread's
chew bread for too long.
chewy.
Have you ever eaten a salad, like a big salad?
Yeah.
And then it's just, why does this hurt more than other stuff?
Yeah. Some people don't put any dressing on their lettuce, and they're just eating dry leaves. And I'm like, you're a psychopath. You're
That's a
freaking psychopath move.
I mean, I don't think that's a big deal. If it's just lettuce, that is weird. Like to cut up lettuce, put it on a plate, and then just eat it by itself.
I need ranch or something. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, mixed greens or something. If it's just like
Yeah.
iceberg lettuce, I was like, is this an eating disorder?
Like
yeah, for sure. Because I ain't eating disorder. Of lettuce.
Disordered
eating
eats.
disorder.
Sorry. We have 1 minute and 50 seconds left on this timer.
Oh no. Yeah, like I enjoy, sometimes I don't go with dressing, but I don't just eat straight lettuce. It's like lettuce, cucumber, mushroom, tomato. There's
ooh.
versatility in the flavor.
And no sauce?
Sometimes salt and pepper.
But no sauce.
No, like oil
Not
or anything?
always.
No oil or nothing?
Sometimes I like to experiment with my food in general.
I've done that sometimes, but it has to have like the mix you're saying. It has to have like cucumbers and tomatoes and like maybe mushrooms.
It's also the thing where it's like I just don't like boring salad.
I mean, I'm fine with a basic like side salad, but there's got to be dressing. If there's no dressing, what are we even doing here?
Well, yeah, if it's basic, I need dressing.
Put this on a
That's-
burger.
that's
Put
what
all
I
that stuff you
think
guys
is,
just said
like-
on a burger.
If it needs dressing, it's a boring salad.
What did you name? Lettuce.
Cucumber, mushrooms, tomato, sometimes broccoli.
Yeah, broccoli can be nice in a salad. Because I love, if you have like chopped up cherry tomatoes or some grape tomatoes or whatever.
Good
I
You know
could
what I
almost
wish I
eat
was
it.
into
Yeah.
is dried lemon. Like people will thinly slice lemons and then bake them so that they're dried and crumbly, and they eat them like chips and they put them in salad.
Interesting.
And I feel like I want to like that flavor palette so much, but there's so much bitterness to it that I'm just like too aware of.
Have you ever been to Buca di Beppo?
Yeah, like twice.
I like saying the word Buca di Beppo.
Buca di Beppo, yeah.
Buca di Buca di Buca di
They
Beppo.
got a lemon chicken dish there, chicken limon. That sounds fire. But they serve it with little slices of lemon, and
Yeah.
everyone always like, "Bloop," and like scoops it off to the side.
And you're like, come to Papa.
For real, dude. Because I like eating the rind and all that with the chicken. You know, it's so good. And people are like, ew. And I'm like, dude, try it. And anyone that tries it likes it. Try the rind.
Now I got to go back to that mediocre restaurant just for that.
I will go back to that mediocre restaurant just for that.
I mean, I think it's a fine enough restaurant. A lot of people,
it's mid.
Just like
Italian
you're saying,
food.
fine enough.
Yeah,
mediocre.
for me, it's better than Olive Garden.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't understand how anyone likes Olive Garden.
Well, hold on now. All right.
It's too salty.
Super
Everything I
Toscana.
had there,
It's delicious.
I could not enjoy. The last time I went to Olive Garden, I was too aware of the air conditioner, and everyone was talking to me like I was crazy. But it was so loud. It was just like,
It's just dubstep. Someone's just playing dubstep in the back.
it's like I understand that it's faint and people like learn to tune out air conditioners, but I am so aware that there's a giant machine pumping air and electricity through this building.
It was just Roselle.
That's so funny. If your mother. Yeah, it felt like I was Doctor Who or something. Like I'm finding out that secretly this restaurant is a spaceship abducting people.
It's just Daleks making pasta in the back.
That's why the breadsticks are so addictive. They're alien.
I like their breadsticks.
I don't. They're just coated in salt. Like with other breadsticks, that powdery substance is just flour that's thrown on them before they like bake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like garlic and salt. But at Olive Garden, it was just salt. It was like a cinnamon stick, but salt instead of cinnamon. It was awful.
I like it. Especially when you mix it with the Super Toscana.
I guess. Maybe I had to put it in soup.
The other thing about it is for $10, you get unlimited breadsticks and salad. And that is poor person friendly. You could sit there for hours and just eat soup over and over.
Yeah, I might
and
eat so much cheesy iceberg lettuce.
I prefer that other restaurant. They got calamari with lemon. Delicious.
Oh, bro, give me calamari anywhere. I'll eat that.
They got calamari and lemon at Olive Garden.
Give me calamari and I'll mess that thing up live.
Oh yeah, I'll tear it up live.
Tear it up live.
Wait, what place? Johnny Carino's?
No, I can't say it. You just said it.
Buca di Beppo.
Yeah, Buca di Beppo.
Oh, Buca di Beppo.
I can never say it until I hear it for some reason.
That's funny. I thought it was a bad word.
No, yeah.
You're like, I can't say it.
Boca the Pep Boys.
Yeah, Buca di Beppo is crazy bomb. But also, when you eat like a high-end Italian restaurant and then you go to like a Buca di Beppo or Maggiano's or something, then you're like, oh wait, this is mall food. Actually,
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Actually-
definitely different. I still
Yeah.
think it's better
It's
than
worse
Olive
than mall
Garden.
food.
No, it's not. I'm taking Buca di Beppo to like Sbarro Ziti.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I'm like super aware of when people chew and it makes me uncomfortable. And it's not like I don't think people are loud chewers. I can hear it like from everyone. I can hear my own chewing. It's annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm neurovergent. It's not funny. All right.
You're a brainy virgin? You're a nerd? Okay.
That's funny. It's funny. Nerd virgin.
You said the same thing twice.
Yeah. It's funny. But I also don't like it when people chew. And I'm not like oversensitive or have hypersensitivity or anything like that. I don't think.
Yeah, you just hate people having a good time.
No, it's just and it's only in a silent room.
Yeah.
If there's like some music playing or TV playing, I'm fine, completely fine. But if
Yeah.
all I can hear is chewing and I'm like focused on you chewing, it's gonna destroy my life.
I've definitely learned to cope with it over the years, but I'm more aware of it when I'm stressed out. So it's kind of become kind of part of my OCD.
Some people are gross though. Chewing with your mouth open is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And people do it all the time, or like just hit the hard smacks.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm like, what are you, a mule?
Yeah, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, because like to me, I can kind of deal, but it does. It very much bothers me. But it's like when you disrupt what's expected of the room, the noise in the room.
Yeah.
It's when you add a noise I'm not expected to deal with.
Right, and it's also an inconsistent noise. Like air conditioners and white noise I could deal with because it's constant, but it's like.
Yeah, I love how he's making Minecraft
traffic.
noises right now
That's
for
funny.
food chewing.
Food chewing is annoying.
the worst.
So yeah, that's an example of hypersensitivity. Hyposensitivity is the opposite effect, where they seem to not be. I think that a person with hyposensitivity is aware of those noises, but they're ignoring them.
Oh, that's interesting to me, because I feel like that's kind of my thing. Like, I can't feel anything, so I try and make myself feel stuff by flashing colors in my face. And
No, I mean, that's not what I mean. It's like a common thing you'll see in autistic kids is like you'll try to talk to them, you'll say their name, and they just like won't. They won't give you any signal that they've registered that you're speaking to them.
oh, that's frustrating.
That is something I used to do, and I remember doing when I was younger. I was very like, I didn't speak till I was like 5, and even then, it was hard to get me to talk. Once I was talking, I would info dump, and I would get super like hyper. But it was often hard for me to reach that point with new people. So I would say it feels disingenuous to completely claim that it was select mutism, but it was definitely hard for me to interact with people.
I still feel like I talk to full-grown adults and there's no connection happening. I feel like they're not getting it.
Yeah.
Happens all the time in the wild. I go in the wild a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
New Jersey.
Maybe they're feral.
Yeah, they act like it.
You're just talking to statues at the Rainforest Cafe.
Josh went on a bender over there.
Yeah. You look like a giraffe.
Josh, that's a giraffe. It's not even that these things aren't necessarily unheard of. It's just like nobody talks about how they evolve in people that are late diagnosed, because we're still experiencing this similar things to the people that are officially diagnosed, but we kind of don't know how to address it. We don't know what to call it, and so we learn to deal with it differently than I feel like we would if we were diagnosed, because there's already a limited set of resources for autism as a disability, but even more so when you're not diagnosed, you have no access to any resources, and so you just kind of have to figure it out.
Yeah.
That actually was like a huge realization for me as a kid, because to be honest, when I was originally diagnosed, I was kind of upset about it, because I, like most people, had a specific idea of what autism was, and I didn't want to be associated with that. I already acknowledged that I was like different from people, that like, again, I struggled making friends. I struggled keeping friends. I, often would make like social faux pas. I wasn't always aware of myself. And that was already a thing I was struggling with before I knew it was because of me being autistic. So I had more of a reason to deny autism, because while that would explain why I was how I was, that would also in my head confirm what I thought people thought about me.
Right.
So having to realize, the more I learned about it, like, I want to say even I did kind of like start to accept it very quickly, but even that realization of how I was masking and how I learned to cope before the diagnosis was something I didn't really come to terms with until after high school. It's a huge thing that people go through when they're late diagnosed, because you start to realize that sort of unsettling feeling that I think that a lot of late diagnosed people realize like why they were so, I don't want to say off-putting, I want to say like distant from other people. I think like a lot of us learn to, because we're learning to hide the parts of ourselves that are fully embracing emotion, like not just when we're upset, but also when we're happy. Like we learn to bottle things in like we're told everyone else is doing. So I think that sometimes that creates like a very internally like closed off person, very guarded person. And that happens in general with people, but I think more so with late diagnosed autistic people, because it's we don't realize we're forcing ourselves to do that, and that's what's making us unhappy.
Interesting. Is having a hard time making friends a thing for autistic people?
Autism kind of crosses over several different categories. It's a neurological disorder. It also has a behavioral component to it, and in that a social component. I would say that is why a lot of what is now considered low support needed autistic people were diagnosed Aspergers instead of autism, because they believe because the person diagnosing them believed that most of their struggles were with social interaction. And that's another kind of common misconception. That's, I think, my personal reason for rejecting the idea of Asperger's. There's a lot of different reasons to reject the idea of Asperger's. There's a reason that it is no longer accepted in the DSM-5 and is no longer a legitimate diagnosis in the United States.
Because it sounds too delicious.
Gross.
Gross.
He was a Nazi, John. But yeah, that is like my primary reason for rejecting Asperger as a concept is like when I hear someone being diagnosed with, or when I hear a doctor trying to diagnose me with that, what I feel like they're saying is that you don't struggle as much as you think you do. Like, for me, it's belittling. They're trying to dismiss how much I actually struggle. Now, I am considered low support needs, and I want to be specific. I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Later, they tried to, whenever I would apply for resources or talk to a therapist, a new therapist, if it was a bad one, often they would try to convince me that they thought I just had Asperger's, and it's like, okay, but that's not what the first guy said. And diagnosis can evolve, but Asperger's specifically is not a legitimate diagnosis, and then I think that's why it's such a big problem for me. Is it seems dismissive to me. It seems like they're trying to say that, like, yeah, you are different, but not enough that I want to help you. And it's like, that sucks to hear.
I get that.
Because, well, I do accept that low support needs does imply that we do not struggle to the same extent as someone with more severe attributes. That doesn't mean that it's not the same disorder. It is the same thing happening. Just, in my opinion, like the difference is that some of us are able to figure these things out and some of us aren't. Mm-hmm. Because it all starts from the same place. It starts from a phenomenon in the brain that is different from everyone else. For me, autism is a difference in absorbing information. And I do think that to some extent, most autistic people start the same at infancy, and then some of us just, the synapses click and some of us don't. Like, I've said this before, but like, I could have been one of those people that didn't talk. I eventually figured it out, but there was a long time where I didn't. And I think that the barriers between high and low support needs are not as thick as people think they are. And it also doesn't mean that we don't struggle. It just means that we don't struggle to that extent. You know what I mean? Like, I still have processing issues. I still, sometimes when I'm trying to explain something, my brain starts to like have lapses and freezes, and I have issues. I still have issues with my vocabulary. Like, I still have issues speaking. And I think that because I'm so articulate, people don't realize like that still happens to me. Just because someone has low support needs does not mean that they have no support needs.
Yeah.
You know, we're still struggling. Even there's people that don't want to admit it, but even like, you know, Elon Musk, all those people that want to say, because some people some people do want to accept Asperger's because kind of, to me, for similar reasons that I wanted to create that sort of distancing, is like they are acknowledging that they're different, but they are not the bad kind of different. I think that's what I hear when someone fights to keep Asperger's as an identity.
Yeah, that guy probably soiled that name, the Nazi.
Well, yeah, it's his name.
Yeah, but I mean, it became a term after his name,
Right.
you know. But I do think there should be some kind of designation between different stages, levels. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing is like we are trying
parts
to.
of the spectrum should be differentiated.
Well,
Right.
again, it's there aren't different. We're not categorized into different sections of the spectrum.
Yeah, this isn't
Each
like
of us,
Right.
each of us has a set of symptoms that are scaled on the spectrum.
Right.
Because the spectrum doesn't have to do with how autistic we are. It has to do with where we land in each category of functioning.
yeah. Instead of like a big chart of 0 to 100, it's like The Sims where you have a bunch of little different skills and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
like in a video game when you're able to move traits and scale them.
Got it.
So there's different expressions. Some are higher and lower in different people.
Yeah. Like some of us have better social skills, but we still have like maybe that person still struggles with like adapting and absorbing information.
Right. Okay.
You know.
I think I understand. I think the reason I was saying it that way was to be like, if it's a huge net that encapsulates a bunch of different things, it's easier to help certain people if you can subcategorize.
Well, we are, or not when I say that is being done,
Yeah.
but that's also why we're trying to remind people that the language is changing.
That's what I was saying. That I think
Because
it's name
what
soiled.
we're trying to take away is the dismissive distancing that people were creating, because they were trying to create a whole other name for a whole other version of the disorder, but it's the same disorder regardless of what you call it.
That's true.
So giving it arbitrary nicknames is pointless. Instead, from what I understand, there are now set levels that define like how severe your struggles are. And
makes
that's
sense.
why they changed the terms from high and low functioning, which was another thing that I've gotten into enough times before. You know, I won't get into now. But that's why high functioning and low functioning have been changed to low support need, high support need. A lot of people get confused. Someone actually pointed this out to me recently, and to a degree I understand where they're coming from, where flipping the high and low words is confusing people.
Yeah, right now you just went high functioning and low function. No, you did the opposite. You said low support
'cause-
needs and high support needs.
Because I was purposefully like associating with where they were before. Like high is now low, low is now high. And I understand why that's confusing people. What I told them was like, think of it like instead of saying low, say less. And it makes more sense to people. Like these people have less support needs than people with more severe displaying traits, and those people have more. So if you struggle with high and low, just switch it to less and more, and it's the same.
Nice.
So less support needs, more support needs.
Got it. That's confusing.
Less is more.
Got it. Less is more.
Stop it! Why did you do that?
No, I'm thoroughly confused.
You could look into
No,
it for yourself.
I'm just joking. I'm not.
That is my favorite thing about trolls on the internet. Are like, oh, explain to me. I'm like, no, you have Google. Look into it for yourself, asshole.
I kind of was just talking about this, about all the information that I know is online. So asking me for information is ridiculous to me.
Exactly. Like they just want to dismiss you outright.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
they want to say like, well, if you don't have the receipts to back it up, it's like the receipts are available for anyone to find. You can find the receipts yourself if you want to.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the point. Is like the point is that you don't want to. You're just picking a fight for no reason.
Big facts.
Yeah. Because if you can go on TikTok and find so many creators with these experiences and these diagnoses or lack thereof, and they'll tell you everything, but you're not doing it. You're not listening to them.
Well, what I mean is like it's not even our job to do that. Like you can look up the research papers that are done on it. You can look up what's currently being shared by the specialists that are studying autism as a disorder and a neurotype. And you can just catch up yourselves. Like the DOR, the Department of Rehabilitation, has their own YouTube channel.
Oh shit.
I will say what I can provide is in my link tree, but I'll probably also add a direct link to this episode, is embraceautism.com. that is my alternative that I share with people to Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks can go fuck itself always and forever. But a lot of people ask, well, where should I look for information then? And Embrace Autism is a really good organization. They not only hire like top specialists that study autism, but also a lot of people involved in the project are autistic themselves. And I think that's specifically really important because it reminds people that while our neurotype comes with struggles and in a lot of circumstances comes with disability, we're still capable people. We're just different. Like, you know, I always want to remind people, smart people, successful people are autistic. Not all of them, but I'm saying like, you can't just limit us to that idea of that special needs kid in special ed that you remember. Like, that's not all of us. And also, that's not bad, because when you, I feel like first of all, people use that image to do two things. They use it to kind of dehumanize the idea of autistic people, and they also use it in that sense to sort of demonize the concept of being disabled, because then people are afraid of getting diagnosed. They're afraid of accepting that diagnosis. They're afraid of talking about themselves in that space and mindset. And that shouldn't be a thing. We should be comfortable sharing stuff like that. Not just for autistic people, like every neurological type, neurotype should be comfortable being able to express itself and talk about itself and develop the community and resources that it needs without dismissal or rejection. That doesn't seem necessary. One thing I think is a way that a lot of autistic people struggle, a lot of low support needs people struggle with and need support in is like self-maintenance. It can vary. Like for me, sometimes I forget to make an appointment and then I forget to keep the appointment. And then on the day I'm trying to figure out like bus routes and rides and stuff. And it could also be daily things, like a lot of autistic people struggle to like brush their teeth. Sometimes it's a memory thing. Sometimes they don't like the way the bristles feel and they haven't made a toothbrush yet that doesn't feel like a brush on your teeth. They do make one that's like a sponge, but it's just a different texture, but the same scrubby feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget to eat. And it's so funny because I'm fat, so a lot of people don't picture me forgetting to eat, but I'm fat because I don't exercise. It's not because of how much I eat. I do eat a lot sometimes. I was a feelings eater as a kid, but you know what's funny about that one is I actually started coming up with like different tricks and tools for helping with that specific process, because honestly sometimes I don't eat. Sometimes I am like the kind of person who like snacks when they're bored, but sometimes if I have something to fill my time, I will go a whole day without eating and not realize it. Mm-hmm. And then the next day I'm just like dehydrated and malnourished and groggy because I went so long. Like the problem with hyperfocus is you are running on all burners and not refueling, so you're like overheating your body. I don't know if any of those mechanical analogies make sense, but
No, that makes sense.
yeah. And so there's also this thing that's more common with like ADHD and what's known as ADHD, autism ADHD people, is I think that ADHD burns out a lot more than people with just the autism, because we also experience ADHD burnout, which is where our hypermania uses up all of our dopamine and serotonin. So after a long day of experiencing those chemicals, our body is depleted of them and kind of needs time to build that up.
Right.
So we have like drops. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I found out because I used to think that I might be bipolar because I'd have days where I was like hypermanic, and then the next day I'd be sort of sluggish and kind of depressed, and then the next day I'd be up again. But that's the thing I found out is common with ADHD and ADHD is it's not. The difference with bipolarism is that bipolarism isn't day to day. It's more cycles of swapping in and out. It's episodes. Where with ADHD, it is a direct correlation of how active we're being prior to the drop,
Right.
and how long it takes to recover from the drop.
And I'm sure your nutrition and stuff.
Yeah, one big thing. This is important for everybody, but especially if you have ADHD and autism, electrolytes are important. Daily water is important, and finding ways to get yourself to eat is important.
Got to get that vitamin B.
But I don't know. You said you eat ass.
Yeah.
I actually have thought of like a bunch of different like games and tools to help me remember to like eat and maintain myself. And I made a TikTok about them a while back, but I can say them now, and hopefully this will help other viewers. The first thing, so this specifically helps me remember to like eat regularly. I think in my opinion, at least for my experience, two of the leading reasons why I might forget to eat or choose not to eat or struggle getting myself to eat is either because I'm craving something incredibly specific and I can't identify it. I just know that it's not the things that I'm seeing in front of me. So like until I figure out what it is I'm craving, everything else is unappealing.
I get that.
The second thing is, so actually there's three reasons now that I think about it. The second thing is similar to that, but it's more like, and I hear this a lot, especially in response to when I made the video. I know what I want, but I don't want to deal with the processes of getting it. Like, let's say I'm craving chicken Alfredo. I don't want to actually have to go to the store, buy noodles and sauce, come home and make them. And if I do already have them, I don't want to go through the thing of making the meal, eating the meal, and then having to deal with the mess afterward. There is a lot of ways to get around that I'll discuss in a minute. So that's the second reason. And then the third reason is it's not that I'm necessarily hungry, but I've acknowledged that I've gone an unhealthy amount of time without eating. So I need something just to keep my body from like having bad effects. So I'm not hungry, but I know that I need to eat. That one I think is usually an easy fix. A lot of autistic people have safety foods. They have foods that almost always work with their cravings. So, like they're good textures for this autistic person. They are good flavor palettes for this autistic person. They're not necessarily always their favorite food, but it's food that they can almost always eat. I think another way to think about that is having safety snacks, where it's like, it's not that you crave or this is your favorite snack, but it's a snack you are comfortable eating without thinking about it. And that way you always have something to eat until you're ready to like have a full meal.
Mine's chocolate.
That's a good one.
Freaking love chocolate, dude. I just eat it like a psychopath. My grandma got a big old box of chocolate covered raisins. Do you guys like chocolate covered raisins? A lot of people don't like them.
No.
I sometimes do.
Some people hate them, but they're so good. Oh my god, I eat them in handfuls.
It's so rude to put raisins in other things.
No, dude, this is
For
different.
me, I have to be craving raisins to enjoy chocolate covered raisins.
That makes sense. Me, I'm an old fashioned kind of guy. I eat old people stuff. Chocolate covered raisins and popcorn together, dude. Get out of town.
You get out of town. Go sell that shit somewhere else. I do like I don't get it putting M&Ms in popcorn because it has the candy shell, so you don't taste anything until you bite into the M&M. For me, the perfect treat to put in your popcorn if you're trying to create that balance is Bunch of Crunch.
I don't even know what Bunch of Crunch is.
It's the
Never crunched a Bunch
Nestle
of-
Crunch bars, but it's like little nugget. It's like Nerds, but it's chocolate with crisp in it.
Got it. Oh, I could see that working.
Yeah. They're perfect because they melt easily and they have that crunch factor. They have that snack factor, so you know it's there. But it's also, that part is more of a textural thing for me. That's my opinion. I think they're the perfect snack. A lot of people do different things. Some people, my little brother puts cookie dough bites in his popcorn.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that solid chocolate and popcorn mix, and then the raisins.
Just if you're gonna do
They're
something
good.
in a popcorn, just give me some caramel popcorn, caramel corn or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I don't
that's
think
good
I could
stuff.
I could withstand raisins and popcorn kernels in my teeth. It's two different kinds of food stuck in your teeth. It's frustrating on all sides.
Like, I feel like I understand like that energy of like cooking, or like, even if
Yeah.
like, I remember when I first started just prepping lunches for myself, there's a point where like a weird amount of time, like a long amount of time, I would just make black beans, rice, and pork chops for like months.
Yeah.
And for my lunches specifically. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, I could do this. I can repeat this process.
Yeah, I think that's why some people get stuck in like. There's a thing similar to like hyperfocuses where I think a lot of autistic people will get stuck on foods. Like, I had a friend or a mutual on TikTok who for a whole week was making Swiss sourdough like Roadhouse burgers because she had the ingredients for it. And because it was two things happening. One of them was her learning this recipe became a stimulating activity. So like she enjoyed the whole process of making it. She also figured out how to reduce the amount of collected like mess that she had to deal with. She used paper plates. She made most of it in the same pan so that she would just have one pan to clean. And it was like a fun, like temporary hyperfocus because she just kept making the burger until she ran out of certain ingredients and then moved on to a new recipe.
That's awesome. That's fun.
That's always a thing if you can figure that out. Sandwiches I think are often a very common like safety snack food or safety food because like as far as getting over the process of making food, because a lot of sandwich recipes are very clean and singular, I guess. And sandwiches are something where you just have to have the ingredients readily available. Like you can pre-slice lettuce, or you can pick like I forget what kind of. It's not iceberg lettuce. I don't think it's romaine either. But it's like instead of a large like ball of lettuce, it's like
like green leaf,
like tubes of easily peelable. You just cut the white part, and you have a already perfectly portioned.
That's romaine.
Oh, it is romaine.
The long one? The long ones?
Yeah. I think those are good for sandwiches.
Yeah. So sometimes, like Wendy's uses the romaine lettuce, and it has that like thick spine.
They keep the white in. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I'm like, you're ruining my whole sandwich. My sandwich is falling apart.
Sandwiches require structure. It's like their whole thing.
I don't want to have to feel like I'm breaking the sandwich's back.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the
Get in me.
cracking videos.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm imagining, I know a bunch of autistic people are going to be making a sandwich with romaine lettuce, and they're going to do that thing.
Yeah.
Another thing is soups. Soups are common. I think always try to make sure you have some kind of protein and vegetation in your soup, because a lot of people will go for like basic soups.
You shouldn't eat soups too much. They're good, but they're not always the best for you in that. Like, you cook a lot of the stuff off that's good in those meats or in the vegetables and stuff.
If you have the mental space for it,
soup's delicious.
Stew is a good steady recipe, because it's
You got a stew going.
Oh, yeah.
all you need.
Hot ham water.
Because all you need is the protein with vegetables and like the knowing how to make. I like stew because you don't necessarily need broth to make stew. You can add broth, but you don't need broth, I found. I'll stop myself before I get into how you make stew. You can look up how to make stew. It's fun.
It's delicious.
It's delicious. And it's very hearty. It's very easy to collect all the things you need in your system with a stew. Anyway, the last thing I'll say about it is, like, for me, the biggest thing is just when you're trying to figure out a craving, is just imagining that you're eating and like what flavors are you tasting that you crave so much. You know, I think that identifying whether it leans towards bitter and sweet and umami helps you whittle down your options. The other thing I like to do is I tell people, imagine yourself eating, what are your hands doing? And I think that usually that helps you figure out not only what it is you're craving, but potentially what kind of prep work you're trying to keep yourself from having to deal with. And then it's just like you having a conversation with yourself about how to get through that as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and when you said, what are your hands doing? It's just always sandwich hands. I always have sandwich hands.
Just a Lego man.
I just
over
want
here.
sandwiches.
Sandwiches are fun. I think that we've talked about a lot of different things today. And thank you for helping us celebrate another month of autism awareness.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. We're so close to him admitting it. Oh, just one more year, I swear. No.
I don't think so.
But yeah, thanks for hanging out. If you've made it this far, you're the coolest person I know, because that was really cool of you. And let us know in the comments what your favorite type of safety food is. What's your favorite food? What's your easy food? Whatever, however you interpret the question, what's your safety food? And from us at Un Poquito, don't fly.